Well, hello again and welcome to another episode of the Hyperion Adventures Podcast. I'm Tom, as always, and with my gorgeous, wonderful, intelligent, extremely hardworking Disney Cruise at Christmas loving wife and co-host Michelle.
Thank you, sweetie. And hello, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I have to remember how to do this. It's been a few weeks
since
we've done this, and it is a whole new year. As you were just mentioning, we are recording this episode on Sunday, January 2nd, 2022. As you mentioned, Michelle, Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah. Hope 2022 brings each and every one of you and your families all the best.
Yes. Hope you had a fun yet safe and healthy New Year's celebration. Mm-hmm. We stayed up all the way to East Coast New Year's, even though we were on the West Coast.
Yeah. I was going to say, are you going to explain that how that wasn't a very difficult feat? Although it was a little for me. I was like, oh, please. It was a busy day for me.
Yes, you had a crazy day. We may discuss a little of that a little later, but yeah, it's always amazing for us for New Year's. You know, we never make it to actually New Year's our time. If we make it to East Coast New Year's, great. We're doing pretty well.
Good, yes.
If we make it to like Chicago Central Time New Year's, man, we are partying.
Yeah.
But we had some fun. We had some snacks, had some food, had some drinks. It was a good time.
You put out a nice spread, and I appreciate all the work you did to provide that for us.
Yeah, well, it was just us, the two of us at home, watching some TV, enjoying some fun stuff, and just having a good old time together. So speaking of getting together, thank you for joining us today. In the future, you can find us most everywhere you get podcasts. However, the very best place to find us is on our own website, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. And while you're there,
we are still offering you an opportunity, if you haven't done so yet, to subscribe to our newsletter.
So many opportunities to sign up for the newsletter on the website. And yes, it will be returning this week. We took a few weeks off while we were out of town, but there will be a brand new newsletter coming out for you on Tuesday, I expect is when I'll have it out. Tuesday, somewhere late afternoon, depending on where you are in the country.
Nice.
And it's just another way to kind of be involved in the Hyperion Adventures podcast world, get information a little earlier than some others, know what we have going on, share if there's some details we'd like you to have include your input on, whatever it may be. It's just another fun way to be involved with this show.
Right. And that's where the sharing stops, because we don't share your email address with anybody.
That is a very good point. Michelle always has the very best points. Also, you can be in contact with us on social media. We're on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. If you are on Facebook, come on over and join us in the Hyperion Adventurers Facebook group, where we're just having a lot of good, positive Disney energy fun.
Yeah, a lot of great people have joined, and we appreciate if you can tell your family and friends about that.
Yeah, so come on over and just get in on the good time. You can just sit there and watch and see what we post every day, or if you want to put in your own input, tell us what you're doing, how you're having your Hyperion adventure for the week, the month, the year, whatever it may be. We would love to hear from you there.
Exactly.
Yes, we are also on YouTube. We had some interesting videos we dropped on YouTube this week on our YouTube channel. One was Michelle's little holiday decorating tips on board a Disney cruise, which was fun. And then we also had our little Christmas Day message from aboard the ship that we recorded on there. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that during today's show, since that is today's topic. And we may have a couple more videos coming out for you here in the next week or so. We got a lot going on, so it's hard to edit a video and get it out there. But I'm going to try and drop those at some point soon. But if you want to find us on YouTube, just do a quick search for Hyperion Adventures Podcast. Hit subscribe. You'll know whenever we have a video there. And if you ever want to contact us for any reason, please hit us up at our Gmail account, HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com.
That's right. Like we say every week, we just love hearing from you if you just want to say hello to us. But we're also here if you have questions or would like us to do some deep dives or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. We just want input, whatever way it may be. Even if you just want to say hi, it's all just fine. And we don't care if it's contact us through the Gmail, through social media, whatever. we just love to interact with you.
Exactly.
Yes. So also, if you want to support this show, if you find any value from this show and want to help support it a little bit, there's a couple ways you can do that. You can first check out our Spreadshirt shop, where we have all sorts of different items, including, of course, shirts, but yeah, coffee mugs, glasses, all sorts of hats, all sorts of stuff that kind of have our various different logos. And you can find us there by doing a search for Hyperion Adventures Podcast on spreadshop.com, and we'll come up. All our stuff will come up, and you can pick and choose what you want there. Another great way is to become a Patreon member of this show. You can visit our page, patreon.com/Hyperion Adventures Podcast. Find a tier that fits you right. We have all sorts of swag that will go out to you depending on what tier you're in. They start as little as $2 per month, but we appreciate everybody who's already signed up to become a Patreon member, anybody who's purchased anything from our Spreadshirt shop. Everything you do to help this show move forward is extremely appreciated.
Yeah, you can't imagine how much we really do appreciate those of you who have already, joined, and we are so honored by that.
Yeah, that you'd be willing to, throw a couple dollars our way because you appreciate what we do here on a weekly basis.
Right. And like we said just before our vacation time, is that we're having some challenges with computers that we're looking at. I know, I don't want to bring it up to you. I'm sorry.
Don't jinx it. It's trying to record right
now. But anyways, yes, if you could join our Patreon group, we really would appreciate it. We're going to have some new and fun things happening in 2022 for those of you who are members of our Patreon group.
Yeah, we had a couple of special bonus things that came out right around holiday time, and we will have some more interesting things coming up in this new year. Now, speaking of the new year, we are in a new year, and that means we're drawing ever closer to our Hyperion Adventures Disney Hall of Fame induction ceremony episode. Probably just a couple weeks from now. I think I'm going to push it back a couple weeks because we just closed out. Well, we closed it out a few weeks ago, but we're just now getting out to our final category and letting you know who will make it in from that. And then this week, we will be putting out that final ballot along with the items that will be a sort of a reward for one person. We will pick out who votes on that final ballot. I know I have a hat that's going in there, and there's a couple other things. We will have a picture of all the stuff that's going in there and let you know on all our social media channels, on the newsletter, everything. And that will start sometime this week. But first we have to...
And our Patreons get extra vote.
That's right.
An extra name in the hat for the drawing.
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, if you are a Patreon member, you will already have an extra entry into this giveaway that we will have involved in our final ballot. So before we get to that final ballot, we need to close out that final category and let you know who made it in. Who has been nominated for Best Live Action Character that is from anything under the Disney umbrella. It could be Star Wars, Marvel, Muppets, Indiana Jones. All those different things are included in this. And before we give you our final ballot, we like to give you our list as well. And when we do that, we always start with Michelle because we know she has the best tips. As you can see on our YouTube channel.
Oh, man.
She does the best research, but she definitely has the very best list. So let's get to it. Michelle, give us your list of your best live action characters.
All right. Well, I'll admit, I think I went one beyond. I think I have 6. And, not just looking at favorites, but kind of, wanting them to be having some prominence in the films, maybe just more than a single, episode of something for the most part, or just being, to be in the Hall of Fame, they got to kind of earn it, right? They got to, so.
This is a big deal.
Yeah.
No matter what everybody thinks, this is a big deal.
So mine are in alphabetical order. Ish. But anyways, okay, so first one that I wanted to mention out there was Bert. From Mary Poppins,
Very good selection.
Yeah, I mean, Dick Van Dyke is a big part of the Disney company family, anyways. In not just in Mary Poppins, but I think really that role definitely played an important part of Mary Poppins, which was such a classic, and kind of that style of person was obviously an influence for Lin-Manuel when he had his character in Mary Poppins Returns. So I felt like Bert was the one that led the banner on that one.
Great choice. Yes.
Thank you. From Marvel, Black Panther.
Yes.
I just think that character had so many levels of symbolism that it brought to the movies and to us in general, to the world in general, that I thought that definitely warranted a nomination.
Great choice again.
This one may seem random.
From you?
Yeah, I know, right?
Hard to believe.
But Gordon Bombay from Mighty Ducks. I mean, from the movies to more recently in Disney Plus on this series, I just felt like that was a recurring person who we saw go from, different, also talking about somebody with layers, but, have struggles in their personality, found where some of their flaws were and tried to change them, then resurfaced with some of those flaws again, and again came back to the light side.
Very nice.
I thought Gordon Bombay.
That's a great choice. Again,
as
it's
a coach.
Interesting. I didn't really think of Gordon Bombay, but I love that choice. Yeah.
Thank you. And maybe still carry over from the holiday thoughts, but Scott Calvin, the Santa Claus, yes. And I think for, a lot of families that those movies are kind of their tradition. And, I think the character, for the most part was pretty cool, Santa Claus portrayal and how that all moved along.
Nice.
So, thank you. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
I think, obviously.
Favorite of mine,
yes.
for sure.
And I almost left him off because I kind of figured that nomination might come from you anyways, but I felt like it needed
Can't wait
to.
for the new series.
Yeah. And again, just a character that is, so prevalent throughout the whole Star Wars, from every aspect of whether you're talking the films or the animated, And then lastly, Tony Stark, also from Marvel, but again, kind of really started, with Iron Man, that whole universe, and and obviously he plays such a pivotal role in Endgame.
Oh yeah, well he does throughout the Avengers series and many of the Marvel movies for sure. But yeah, great choice.
Yeah, he just has a lot of symbolism associated with him. So anyways, that's my list.
Michelle's list, always the best list.
I don't know. So anxious to hear yours.
So my list, it's a lot of Marvel and it's a lot of Star Wars for my list, but I did keep it to 5. I think, I did keep it to 5. So, and these are in no particular order, but a lot of this is based on, definitely in the Marvel. A lot of my Marvel choices are based on series that we've got to witness on Disney Plus this year that I was really inspired by, including the most recent one that just closed out over the Christmas time.
Right.
And that was Hawkeye. And yes, Hawkeye has made my list this year because I loved that show. I thought it was so well done. It was a good Marvel series, but also acted as like a Christmas type movie series. I just love the theming of it. And I love Hawkeye. I love Jeremy Renner playing Hawkeye. So I thought he kind of vaulted more to the forefront for me after that series than when he's kind of played, I don't know, not one of the more prominent Avengers before this point. I was glad to see him get a showcase here.
Sure. Agreed. I was glad that they had the series. And he almost made my list. It was, maybe more of an honorable mention.
Sure.
So
I get
why you put him on there.
For sure. Speaking of Marvel series, we kicked off the year with one of our favorite Marvel series, and this person is definitely making my list this year, and that is Wanda Maximoff is going to make my list. Of course, the Scarlet Witch, who we're going to see a lot from coming up here in this year, a lot more. But we loved WandaVision, loved Wanda in that series, and can't wait to see more from her. And she has made my list.
Most definitely a good choice.
And finally, a character who's been a favorite of mine for many years, and even more so now after seeing this person in a series recently, and that is Loki. Loki has to be. He's just such a fascinating character.
Very close, almost on my list.
Such a fascinating character that he had to make my list from the Marvel category
Sure.
so far. So, and then I got a couple from Star Wars as well. As you mentioned, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes, I mentioned he's one of my favorites. Had to make my list.
Right.
He is on there. And then, of course, Princess Senator General Leia Organa
true,
had
yes.
to make my list because she's
Very
one of my
good.
favorite all-time characters. And,
Absolutely.
she just needs to be in this Hall of Fame somehow or another. So
Fabulous choice.
yes. So those are my that's my list of
Nice.
nominees. Let's get to the actual nominees, though, as voted on by you, as chosen by you, and a little bit by us, but mostly by you. These are the characters that will be on our final ballot, and this is in alphabetical order. And we're going to start with one that Michelle chose from Mary Poppins, Bert.
Woo!
Is going to
Yay.
be on our final ballot. Also, just inspired by, I think people are inspired by what just dropped this last week because Boba Fett is making his
Right.
debut on our final ballot this year.
Cool.
So that's great. We enjoyed this first episode of the series.
Right.
Looking forward. And you can see they're just kind of setting the stage.
Yeah.
And putting things in place. Can't wait to see where the Book of Boba Fett goes from here. Chewbacca, of course,
Right,
another
yes.
fan favorite. Chewbacca has to make that final ballot. Darth Vader, he's already in as a villain, favorite villain, but now he's in, or at least he's a nominee
Right.
for Best Disney Live Action
Cool.
Character. Let's see if he becomes a 2-time inductee into the Hyperion Adventures Disney Hall of Fame. More Star Wars with Din Djarin, of course, Mando the Mandalorian. He is on the ballot again.
Yeah. He was on my list and I took him off. You know.
I
but
don't
yeah.
blame you at all. This is strange. Actually, I wasn't really for sure that this was going to make it on, but I think inspired by some things that have dropped recently, including a certain movie. Dr. Stephen Strange
Wow.
is a nominee this year. We'll see if he makes it into the Hall of Fame. I think that's
Yeah.
something that's been brought
Sure.
around because of recent exposure we've had
Right.
to him again. Going purely Disney again, Giselle from Enchanted
Nice.
is on the list of nominees. Back to Marvel. Yes, King T'Challa, Black Panther, is on our list of
Sweet.
nominees again. Yes, and so is Princess Senator General Leia Organa. She is on the list. Luke Skywalker from Star Wars
Nice.
has to, of course, another fan favorite who
Right.
made the list. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yay.
Yes, he will be there as well. Again, inspired, I think, particularly by what dropped this week. Peter Parker's, a.k.a. Spider-Man, is going to be on our final ballot.
Cool.
More Marvel with Steve Rogers, Captain America, is on our list.
I kind of thought that was going to be on your list.
Yeah, maybe I might have known a few things. Otherwise, he might have. Speaking of knowing a few things, Michelle knew this was going to be there. Tony Stark, AKA
I didn't
Iron
know,
Man,
but
was going to be
makes
on
sense.
there. Yes, and I think thanks to my final little vote here, Wanda Maximoff made the list. So those are going to be all our final ballot nominees. And I'm going to put together this ballot. It's going to be easy to go on there and click through. Once I get it set up, I will get you the link out this week so you can go on and vote. And we will also let you know everything that will be on for that one person that we pick out of a hat or randomly or whatever that votes on our final ballot that will get this cool Disney and et cetera swag from us.
Yeah.
So,
Be fun.
cool. So that is our look at our final category for it will be our third annual Hyperion Adventures Disney Hall of Fame. Again, that episode I think is going to take place in a couple weeks from now. But before we get into this week's episode, we always like to look back at something that was a bright spot from the week that was. Our favorite thing from this last week, because, there's always some good stuff to talk about out there. And you know how we like to be very positive when we think that there are favorite things, fun things, good things that come out of each and every week. And we like to share those with you. So when we do this again, we always start with Michelle because her favorite thing is probably the best thing.
Yeah.
So Michelle, what is your favorite thing from this week?
Well, first of all, I'm so glad you added this to our show each week because I do think it's important to take the moment, and even sometimes the smaller things are the things that bring us the most joy. And so for this week, my favorite thing was actually just having time with my sister and brother-in-law, and although we were all masked up to stay safe, it was really just fun having time to relax and laugh together with them. And it just really set the tone for a wonderful future.
Yeah, that I agree with you. That was one of my favorite things from this week as well. They did pick us up from the cruise ship. They had just come down from Massachusetts. As you may know, if you've listened to the show often, they have a condo right there, kind of on the Melbourne, India-Atlantic area, right there on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. And we did it very safely because, they had traveled down across country. Well, sort of cross country. It is still cross country, just from north to south.
Right.
And they had traveled. We had been on a cruise. Plus, Michelle had flown and everything. So we decided, let's be as safe as possible. We masked up whenever we were in a car together, indoors together, not eating or drinking. But we did sit out. They have this lovely balcony out looking at the ocean. We sat out there a lot. We could take the masks off when we were outside, fully socially distanced, and enjoyed some really good time with them.
Yeah.
Really good conversation. Really good. It was really nice of them to put us up for a couple of days after the cruise.
It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah. So my actual favorite thing from this week, I wish you would stop bringing it up because I can't talk about it yet. I promise you it's coming close to when I will be able to talk about it, but I can't quite talk about that yet. But so many favorite things. That thing that you talked about, Michelle, with Helen and Tom, your sister and brother-in-law, was so good. Getting home and catching up on some of our shows. We got to catch up on Hawkeye.
Right.
We got to watch the Book of Boba Fett when that dropped. And I'm going to drop this in here, even though it's not Disney, but I really enjoyed it. We watched this yesterday. It just came out yesterday on HBO Max, and that was the Harry Potter 20th reunion special. I thought it was done really well.
Yes.
Really enjoyed it. Gave some behind the scenes of what happened as they were making all these films, and we're talking with so many of the actors, directors, producers, etc. Getting their look, they're reminiscing about it, plus telling stories about what was happening during production. It was really entertaining, and I highly suggest, if you're a Harry Potter fan at all, you've probably already seen it or it's on your schedule. But if it for whatever you missed your radar, go find it on HBO Max.
Yeah, it was like you said, it was really well done and fun seeing the characters, the people come together who played those, the more prominent characters, especially, and just like you said, some cute behind the scenes. It was more just really touching to see, from an emotional aspect and, going from being kids to, adulthood and stuff. So
yeah, how the show shaped them essentially. It was really fascinating stuff, and it was really well done, and it was a good show. It's a little long. It's about 2 hours.
Right.
But I thought it filled well. And I mean, they got to basically talk about all those movies. What is it, 8 movies?
Yeah.
In all.
Right.
That's a lot to talk about. So, but it really, really enjoyable. So
yeah.
I
thought that was good. The other thing that almost made my list was just the fact that we did make it home without too many challenges. I think we had one delay, but it didn't impact our connecting flight. But for those people who are traveling now, I know the struggles that a fair amount of people are dealing with. Yeah. So I think that was also a good thing that happened this week.
Yes. So, we made it home without too many issues, and that was definitely a good thing. So, let's get to this week's show. We
did have a listener it just yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yes.
I missed it.
Scott from Minnesota.
Oh.
Had he posted on our Facebook group. I think he did, or maybe because I responded to something he had posted, but just really enjoying seeing a live hockey game outdoors.
Oh yeah, they do that. They do those like 2 or 3 games a year where they have them. They hold them outdoors.
Right, exactly. So that was cool, and I totally get that. It is fun. It's fun, really, just watching. It just has that kind of hometown feel, being an outdoor ice rink.
Yeah, that is cool. We've watched those games on television. We haven't actually been to them, but yeah. So thank you, Scott, for chiming in. Yeah, if you ever want to chime in with what your favorite thing is from any given week, please hit us up. The Gmail account, social media, whatever. It could be Disney related. It could be something personal. It doesn't matter. Just whatever your favorite thing is from that week.
Right.
And we will, of course, share it with everybody. So, again, moving on to this week's show, we have a fair amount of stuff for you this week. Actually, it was a relatively slow week for Disney news, probably because we're right in between Holidays, the Christmas and New Year's holiday. But I do have a story for you that I'm going to share, and that is a popular Walt Disney World destination has reopened today, while another one has closed. We'll tell you what they are and which ones you may want to visit as we get to the Disney stories of the week. But enough about that. Let's get to our main topic of the week. So yeah, okay, I know we're well past the Christmas holiday now, the holiday season, but we thought we'd drop the holiday music on you one more time because, well, this episode is all about waking up on Christmas Day aboard a Disney cruise, recapping our Very Merrytime Disney cruise that we just had.
Yeah, it was fun and exciting.
Yeah, and we will tell you about that, but we're going to kind of talk about the entire trip, not day by day. We're not going to break down on, the first day of the cruise we did this, the second day of the cruise we did that.
Second day of cruise.
Right. Yes. But we are going to tell you a lot of the key points of what we hit and give you some information on what you might need to know, want to know if you have the thoughts of booking a Disney cruise in the future, but especially a Disney Very Merrytime cruise, especially one that happens right on Christmas Day.
Yes.
So, but we're going to start this with how this vacation actually started. And that was, you may have caught it on social media, Scott and I driving across the country again, because apparently that's what we do now.
I think you kind of get into a point where you sort of like it.
I actually kind of do. Especially after our last flight, I kind of like it more than flying now. I just wish it didn't take quite as many days.
Right.
But I actually kind of enjoy it. It's really an easy drive from San Diego cross country, other than the time it takes, but it's mostly one highway, a couple other highways, but mostly it's like the I-10 the whole way. So it's actually pretty smooth, and it's really interesting to go across this country and see how the topography, the geography, all of it changes as you go across from San Diego into Arizona, New Mexico, West Texas, some of the mountain regions, into more of a farmland and tropical area as you get. It's really fascinating to see the country change.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, there are people in this country and from around the world who love seeing those sites. So it makes sense that it would be a very interesting and I don't know, educational.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I can pay attention to it as I'm trying to pay attention to the road, but it really is fascinating.
You had to do research
to go across it. So I left on Tuesday morning, December 14th. Gosh, seems like eons ago. And I guess technically it was. It's been almost a month. Jeez. Right. Went through. We were 4 days on the road. Day 1 from San Diego to El Paso. Day 2 to Houston. Day 3 to Tallahassee. And then day 4 to Kissimmee. And if you don't know, part of the reason we do this is because Scott, our son, spends half the year with us and half the year with his birth father who lives in Florida. Right. So we were getting him back for his half a year with him. And then we met up at Kissimmee, Florida, and connected. Scott moved on to there, and it all went well with that.
Right. And thank you for doing that again. I know it's a big undertaking, and I really appreciate that you did that for him, because I know for Scott to fly, it's not a comfortable thing, especially right now. And, and especially, the concerns with potential flight cancellations
Right.
and things. It's just that whole thing would be so emotionally difficult for him. So you make it easy.
Well,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that. There was also a few other factors, including like we didn't have some decisions on some things made until the last moment, so there were some price factors involved as well. But and I think especially now that we see COVID surging again, I think even more so we were glad that we didn't bother to do that. It was much more easier and seemed safer to take him across country driving. So anyway, dropped him off. Everything went well with that. I went to Michelle's sister and brother-in-law's condo on the coast at that point. They had not come down yet, so I got some sleep, which was good. And then Michelle red-eyed in the next morning, arrived in Orlando Airport. I went out to pick her up, and she arrived on the 18th, and we had a nice day just together, her getting some rest and us getting reacquainted after 4 or 5 days away from one another, which was really nice.
Yeah.
And then we went out to the port to board our cruise on Sunday, December 19th.
Yeah, it's an exciting day.
Yes. So now if you've done a Disney cruise before and you haven't experienced it during COVID times, the procedure is a little bit, well, actually, it's a lot different than what it has been in the past. And we're going to tell you just a few things about that so you can be prepared if you have a Disney cruise coming up here in the near future.
Right. And it's, just not to get people concerned about it. It's a smooth, well thought out process. I think over time they've made some changes to make it easier for people, and it was a breeze, I thought.
Oh yeah, I actually think they did really well. I was very impressed with how they handled everything. This is going to be actually a theme of this entire segment. Is I'm going to tell you how impressed I was with how Disney handled a lot of things that we did on the ship and off the ship for this cruise. So, by the way, this cruise was a 7-night Very Merrytime cruise aboard the Disney Fantasy with port stops at Castaway Cay, Falmouth, Jamaica, and in Cozumel. We did at one point, we're supposed to have a stop at Grand Cayman. However, that got, Grand Cayman isn't allowing cruise ships right now. So we just, they canceled that. We got our port charges back, and that ended up being another glorious sea day, which we enjoy anyway.
Yes.
So moving on to the check-in process, we arrived at the port. We had actually rented a car in the Orlando airport that we could have dropped off at the one of the rental car locations that is like a mile away from the port itself. Really easy. Drove there, dropped it off in the morning. Right now they have a time you have to actually pinpoint a time. I mean, in the past you've had to pinpoint a time, but if you're platinum like us, you could just arrive at the port. Now you actually have to have a time for your arrival at the port. So,
and it was interesting that how the rental car companies working with Disney Cruise Line, they weren't going to take us to the port unless it was within our arrival window. So, and not that they asked us to show verification, they didn't, but I thought that was interesting that, and maybe it's because they've tried to drop people off early and
had to bring them back
or whatever. So, I thought that was kind of a nice, that was already kind of factored in through the car rental company too.
So it was really easy. We told them we were at our time. We were actually a little bit after our time, so they just picked us up. I think we were the only ones on the bus. They took us right to the port, dropped us off there, and then we dropped off our bags with the porter, and then we were directed across the street from the actual terminal where they have all these tents set up. And so what happens when you go there, originally they'll check your, make sure your time is right, make sure you're on that cruise that they have there, scan you in, and then they'll take you into a tent where you'll get in line, you'll queue into places where they actually test you. And Michelle, I don't know if you want to explain the procedure a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and I like, I had seen some YouTube videos from months ago. Now it seems, again, very streamlined. You pick up one kit per person, because before it just seemed like they had bins and people could grab kits and everything. But I'm sure too, with supply issues of kits, they handed you a kit, but they also observed you doing the testing, which I thought was really good. One, to make sure you're doing it correctly and that you don't end up with an inconclusive and delay you longer to need another test, they're watching you and making sure you're doing it correctly. And two, that they're watching you to make sure it's you doing it. So I thought that was also a great safeguard. But it was very easy, painless. They, really, like I said, streamlined that how you would put your information on the identifying card. They scanned it in to associate it with the test tube that you were going to submit per person, and it was fast.
Yeah, it was really easy. We had a great guy that helped us out to make sure.
He was so fun.
Yeah, he was a really nice guy. Unfortunately, his name skips my memory right
Scott?
now. I think you're right. It was
Yeah,
Scott.
it was Scott.
Yeah. He was really great, funny guy.
Yeah.
And made sure we did everything right. And we actually took a selfie with him there
Yeah.
because we
he
enjoyed him so
started
much. Yeah.
the tone. He's from the lab, but he just set the tone really nicely.
Yeah. So really good. So we got that done. I think we had to scan another time, and then they direct you to one of several tents where the people that have been kind of checked in or have tested within a certain period go into one of these tents. And so you'll wait in there until your results come back. And they say it could take up to an hour. I think ours took maybe 35 or 40 minutes before we got our results back, tops. It comes in through an email. Now, one thing I did have a little issue with is that it was a little tough to connect because everybody's checking their phones constantly. It was a little tough to connect, but did get through, got our all clear. We were cleared to sail. And as soon as you do that, you go in, you show somebody, they have your name on a list, they check you off, and then you go into the terminal to go through, do your final check-in and go through security. And we were able to walk pretty much right on the ship at that point because they were already boarding the ship.
Right. Yeah. So in addition to your port arrival time that you arrange ahead of time, you're also given a queue line number, and so by the time we went through security, our line number
group
was already called. So yeah, you're right. And the other nice thing is if you've cruised before on Disney Cruise Line and you're a Castaway Key member, based on what level you're at, you were more expedited, so that was kind of nice. Like you had mentioned, we're platinum. So, we had a little bit more shorter line, I should say, to go through and stuff like that. So that made it nice.
Yeah,
they did that for us.
It ended up working out really well. It was really smooth, and it was great. I was so happy to be boarding a Disney cruise ship again. Again, this is the first time we had been on a Disney cruise since the cruise we were on when everything went bananas with the pandemic. So it was good to be back aboard, and we did get a little emotional when we got on board the ship.
Well, I think to summarize, in terms of the boarding process compared to if you've gone to one pre-pandemic, it's a little more time consuming, but not necessarily, other than you're going to be tested. It's not that much difference, especially once your test results, the rest of the flow is very much like it was pre-COVID. Right. It's just that testing part of it, and then having the not delays, but the time that it takes to get your test results run and reported to you. So I think that's important to know that, for the most part, they've tried to make it the same as it was before.
Yet, we were totally impressed and felt very safe doing this, and we're appreciative of what Disney was doing to make sure the people who were boarding the ship were as safe as possible and prepared as possible to, have a good time on board.
Right.
So another thing is when you board the ship first, things are done a little differently. And, I don't know, should we give it away what they do when you normally board a ship, and they still do this. Well,
I think that the thing that we could talk about is that, because there's not like a deck party, they substitute a little some entertainment when you first come in, but I wouldn't say the other stuff.
Okay. Well, what I will say is that they do bring you on in groups, in batches. So it's not just everybody going. They get you on. There is a lot of social distancing separation go on. There's a lot of things when you get on the ship. It's like if you want to be anywhere where there might be somewhat of a crowd, it's be in that spot, stand on that dot, whatever. Right. They're trying to do their best to make sure people are as social distance as possible, masks on inside, whenever you're not sitting down and eating or drinking or they are doing a really good job with that.
Right, exactly.
So I want to talk a little bit about our cabin, because our cabin was a really interesting cabin. Okay. So this is the first time we ever booked this cabin, and we were lucky to get it because it's one of those cabins that goes pretty quickly whenever it's available aboard either the Disney Fantasy or the Disney Dream. We were in cabin it's number 6192 on the 6th deck. It's sort of been nicknamed the flag cabin because there's a flag where if you ever look at the back of the ship and you see where the flag is up when they're in port, it's that deck right there. It's that balcony is where you are. And there's some interesting pros and cons with this cabin that I think we should discuss, because people might want to know if this is a good cabin.
No, they don't want to go to it. Don't book it.
Well, you say that, but there are some cons to this cabin that we definitely took note of while we were there. Now,
yeah, I mean the cabin itself is laid out like all the other regular cabin. It's not. It's one of your standard size, but the big difference is with the size of the balcony. And also want to point out that the flag, like you said, when you're in port, it's there. When you're not in port, it's not there. And they don't come to your room to put it up. They can do it from below. So
yeah, you'll just hear some noise, and then all of a sudden the flag starts raising up out there. They're not peeking in your cabin to go raise the flag.
Yeah, there's nobody there. Yeah.
So, the balcony is enormous.
Spectacular.
It is an enormous balcony. It is really, really long. It's really deep, so we can fit easily 2 lounge chairs, 2 regular chairs, and a little table out there, and there's plenty of room to spare. You can shift them all through that cabin. The other thing about it is, yes, the cabin is the regular width of a standard cabin inside. It pretty much, if you didn't look at the balcony, it would look like virtually every other balcony cabin that you'd find aboard the ship. But when you get out there, it is a good, I want to say 4 to 5 feet wider.
Right.
Then not only is it long, it's wide. It is a huge balcony, and it is glorious. We spent so much time out in that balcony.
Yeah, it really is very, very spacious. And there's, a lot of reasons on how the ship is designed that give that, but yes, you could definitely, we could have fit more furniture out there if we had wanted to, or if you could
have fit a full dining room table out there. It was large enough.
It was really large, so that was really nice to be able to have that, and you're facing the back of the ship, but you do have protection overhead, so because the deck above it, their balcony extends out there, so you have that space too. So a lot of protection from the elements, and great view.
Yeah, really great. One of the cons to that balcony is, like, if you are a person that loves the sun, like you want to sit out on your balcony in the sun all day, because it's undercover, a lot of it, you're not going to get as much sun as you would maybe on some other balconies. And a lot of it, if you get the right angle, then you might get some sun in that balcony. Right. But a lot of it, you are actually undercover, which we appreciate. We actually don't need to be in the sun. If we want to go out in the sun, we'll go up to the pool deck or whatever, or the other many decks aboard the ship. Out there, I found that we were in the shade for almost most of the cruise.
Right. Yeah. There were times when the sun was, depending where the sun was, that we would get, like if it was setting especially. But you're right. For the most part, it isn't. But I think the other thing that makes this deck different, and you would only see this, I believe, on the aft decks, is that you have enough space for a lounge chair. 99% of the decks there, you're not going to have a lounge chair. You're going to have a seat, so you wouldn't be able to have like your legs out and extended anyway. So, it was more comfortable in that we had lounge chairs.
Right. So we love the cabin, but there was one significant factor that if you're thinking about booking this cabin that you need to know about. And Michelle had read this going in, so we kind of had a general idea. And that is, there could be a little bit of movement and noise when the ship is booking, right?
Right. Yeah. So the vibrations that are caused from, like you said, it's mainly when the ship was going, I think like 19 knots and above, you would really notice vibration. And, at first it was kind of, oh, this is kind of nice. A little like, we joked about the old fashioned, you see them on TV, the old movies, the vibrating
cheap
bed.
Motel or something,
yeah.
Putting the quarters in.
Right. But after a while, it can get, like, especially throughout the night, it can really get wearing that it's okay. It's no longer relaxing. It's just jiggling all the contents of my stomach and stuff like that.
Right. I think also if there were things like some of the cabinets and closets and stuff would creak a little bit, or like we'd have to move hangers because they'd be swinging, and knocking into the wall at night. So we just kind of had to prep the room up if we knew we were going to be booking that night,
right?
Because that it could affect our sleep a little bit,
right? So. You could listen for a while and figure out what you needed to do, and it was just kind of funny, like you said, in some points taking some of the unused hangers, especially out of the closet. Figuring out where to put either tissues or cardboard in, doors to make them not rattle. I think we got past, we were able to avoid
you did a good job
rattling.
Of hunting them all down.
Thank you.
Putting some cushions in there and
right.
Making it not happen. But,
right. But yeah, if for some people, especially if you're a very light sleeper, and some people don't want to take the time to try to get rid of all the rattling noises. I could see that room not appealing to some people.
Yeah. So just take note of that. Like Michelle said, if you are a light sleeper, if you don't like the vibration, that may be a factor. Also, and I know you brought this up. It didn't affect me. I don't think it affected you, but the cabin, because of the way it faces, most of the cabins, they have either the bed facing towards the bow or towards the stern, whereas this kind of goes crossways, so it goes from like port to starboard, or no, actually starboard to port is the way the bed faces. So the motion can be a little different if you get some more. Our seas are really smooth, we had no problem with this. But if the seas are a little higher, you might have a different motion that you're not used to on board the ship. So just something to take into account if you're looking to possibly book this cruise or book this cabin.
I think this cabin, obviously it's the sister ship, the Dream, has some of their itineraries where they would never have to go very fast, unless something out of the ordinary happened.
Look into the Bahamas. And
yeah. So
that long haul between the Nassau and Castaway Cay.
Right. So if it's not going that fast, then that vibration really doesn't play into affect the cruise. But because we did have some, longer spans of distance, and especially, again, our itinerary was adjusted mainly for the holiday, so that we were on a sea day during Christmas Day, which was kind of nice, not to be at a port, let families really spend the day together, and have that time special as a family time. So that also kind of changed the courses and made some of the distances to get back to Port Canaveral require higher speeds.
Right. Yeah. And as you said, we did have a sea day, and we did wake up on Christmas Day aboard the ship, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But I wanted to get through a few more things that are interesting during this period of cruising to know what's going on and what's like on a Very Merrytime cruise as well in general. So let's talk a little bit about the experience on board that we went through. Of course, there were COVID protocols being put into place everywhere you went. It's a little different than what your normal Disney cruise, but we felt it was for good that they were doing these things. Sure.
So they really did, and you hear about it before you even go. You get emails and reminders that, they do put into place these safeguards. And so I think some of the more prominent ones that I remember is for the shows, and that could include going to the theater to see movies, is that they did block off every other row. So people weren't allowed to sit in the very next row, either in front of or behind you. And also they mandated 3 empty seats between you and any other party. So like we could sit together, you and I, or if there were other people in our party could sit together, but then at the end of that party, you had to have 3 seats before the next party sat. And so they very much controlled that by helping, by really walking you to your seats. You really couldn't just walk in and pick a seat like you have in the past. I mean, you could, give preferences of side of the room or whatever, but it was, really first come, first serve, and they would just kind of guide you of how to sit and made sure those distances were in place.
Yeah. In the theater, the movie theater, they kind of kept an eye on you, but let you kind of do it on your own, but they would watch you to make sure that you were seated in that position. In the Walt Disney Theater, where the stage presentations are taking place, they would actually walk you to spots and tell you, okay, these seats are available or these seats available, and they would show you where you could go, and
right?
to make sure that you were stationing yourself appropriately,
right? And the other thing is that's different there is so you could have water, you could bring in water to drink, but they weren't like selling any sodas or popcorn or any food or drink because they really wanted you to remain masked up for the entire performance or movie. So that was different from past experiences.
Mm-hmm. A couple other things. The entire crew, every cast member aboard was masked at all times. It seemed like there were a couple of times when they'd be outdoors that they would take them down a little bit, but almost entirely every time we were around them, they were masked.
Right.
So they were doing that. They required guests anytime they were indoor, except like as I said before, when you were sitting down, eating or drinking, to be wearing your mask as well. When you went to Cabanas, the buffet there, it wasn't like, the old days. They would be there. You would go up and get food. You would ask what you want, or you would tell them what they want, and they would serve up their plate for you and hand it to you. Same with the drink service station indoors there as well.
Right. So yeah, in addition to not just sneeze guards, but there was never a way that you could have your face at the food other than looking at it and then telling what they wanted. So I thought that was really good to keep everything safe like that. And like you said, they handed you the plate and the napkin with the silverware inside, and then you'd go find your own seat.
Right, exactly. And it worked out really well. A lot of the different locations, the lounges and everything, they had seats or tables or whatever that were blocked off that say, don't sit here.
Right.
We're keeping this one open so we can have more social distancing throughout these lounges. So that was good. And they did that a lot, like the fireworks show. They would... You couldn't just stand anywhere on deck and watch. They had 2 fireworks shows for different seatings. Right. So if you were at the early seating, you had the later fireworks show. Or no, you had the earlier fireworks show.
No, we were out later.
No, they did have we had the later fireworks show.
Right.
So it was early seating and then like a fireworks show around 8 something or other.
When we were at dinner.
And then when we were at dinner, and then ours was at 10:30, I believe is when it was. So, and they would get you'd line up and they'd say, okay, and they'd guide you to a spot on deck where you would stand so you could be distanced from everybody else, but still hopefully see the fireworks. And we did get a good, even though we showed up relatively late, we did get a good, decent view of the fireworks.
Right, exactly. And it was lovely, and it was enjoyable to, we've done the pirate fireworks before. So it was, for us, I think it was really special to really see something different and, obviously with holiday music in the background.
Right. Also very helpful that the cruises right now are sailing at least at 50% capacity. I mean, at the most, I should say. And I don't believe ours was quite at 50% capacity. I think it was a little bit below that.
Yeah.
And so it made things really easy. Like we never walked up to Cabanas to the buffet and had to wait for maybe one person. I mean, really, it was just walk up and you had 4 servers ready to help you with your food at any one time. There were plenty of chairs around the ship to sit on. That was never really an issue anywhere. The shows, there were plenty of seats available at the shows. I mean, you may not have the best seat if you showed up later, but there was never a problem trying to find a spot within the theater. At least on our experience, that's what we
Right.
came up with. So I think that they were doing a great job of keeping things safe and for us.
Definitely.
And no matter what is out there right now in some media or whatever, I would say we felt a million times safer on that cruise ship for 7 days than maybe in the airport and on board an airplane for a little over 7 hours on the way home from that trip.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of, like we see with anything in this pandemic, it's people driven. And so, if people are following the recommendations and taking the precautions, then, it goes smoothly. And like you said, there are times that you're in public in other areas that's just not the case. So I think on this cruise, what we saw were that people were following the recommendations and that it gave you that sense of the most that could be done to keep you safe was being handled.
Yeah, I felt Disney was doing all they could. Now, people still have to take responsibility for what they do when they get on the ship.
Right.
But Disney was doing everything they could do to make sure you felt safe. And I felt safer on that ship than I've felt sometimes in the parks, definitely than I felt in an airport.
Right.
Sometimes that I feel in a grocery store.
Yeah.
I felt very, very safe on that cruise that, we could do our best, as long as we did our own thing to make sure we were safe, that we were going to come away with that without getting sick.
Right. And like you said, I mean, Disney was doing all the things that they could do, but it was interesting to see that some people, and I'm not being critical of people, it's just, again, it depends on, what your level of comfort is and everything, but so Disney wouldn't seat you with people other than who your immediate party was, who you were traveling with. But that, we saw some people that were choosing to sit during meals indoors with various other groups of people. So you knew it wasn't just their own travel party, and that was their choice. But it wasn't something that Disney was imposing, like I think people, especially in the past with cruises, there's always been that thought of, okay, when you go to dinner, you may be seated with another party. And, Disney Cruise Line used to do this as well. They would try to pair similarities. Like if it was a single parent with a child, they would try to seat you at a dining table with another single parent with a child, things like that. Or if you were adults, they tried to seat you with other adults, who were traveling without children. But right now, that's not what they're doing. You're just going to be seated with your own party. But like I said, if you choose to then have other parties join you, or you join other, parties, they'll let you do that. It's just not what they're imposing on you.
Right. But all in all, felt great about it.
Yeah.
Booked another cruise. Well, we booked a placeholder cruise when we were on board because we're excited to be cruising again. We have another Disney Wish cruise coming up this year and feel very, very safe about it. Now, I don't want to, we've talked about the protocols and everything, all this information up to this point, but now let's get to the fun stuff because there was a lot of fun stuff on this cruise. It wasn't just about COVID and everything else. There was a lot of fun stuff, and this was a very Merrytime cruise.
Maybe we should have started with the fun stuff.
No, I wanted to get the information out there so we can get to the fun stuff, get that out of the way. So this was a very Merrytime cruise. So there were wonderful holiday decorations throughout the ship. I mean, so much fun stuff. Santa even stopped by a couple times before and after his big night. Yeah. Mrs. Claus came by and was telling stories. We didn't see this, but we heard about it many times that she would come by and tell stories, which was fun. Beautiful tree in the atrium, along with lots of other decorations there. What were some of your favorite things that holiday-wise that you found on board the ship?
Well, the gingerbread house is always a big favorite of mine wherever I'm at a Disney, resort or whatever. And this one didn't disappoint. It was really, really lovely. Seeing characters in their holiday attire was so fun. But you're right. Just the amount of garland and lights, etc. The ships are beautiful anyways, but they just really sparkled for the holidays. And, it was just, you were just engulfed in that celebration.
Plus, when you would go out in the hallways, a lot of times, if you know a Disney cruise, you're normally hearing Disney songs as you go in the hallways. For this sailing, and I'm sure for many of the other Very Merrytime sailings, it was mostly holiday music when you would go in the halls, and that's kind of a nice touch to give you that holiday feel as you're sailing along as well.
Right, and for the larger ships, they have more variety of what you can watch on TV, where you could select shows. I mean, you're not getting Disney Plus, although they would always have some Disney Plus show that they were running at that any given time. But you could choose different movies, and they did have holiday films that you could select to watch in your stateroom as well. So I thought that was kind of nice.
Yeah, and they showed Noel in the movie theater, which is, of course, the holiday movie that came out a couple years ago with Anna Kendrick and Bill Hader starring in it. And they showed that in the theater, which was nice.
They showed the original Santa Claus.
That's true. They did that in the Walt Disney Theater, in the big theater. Yeah, they did that on Christmas Day, I believe. I think so, yeah. That was a lot of fun, too. So speaking of the entertainment, lots of great entertainment on board. Maybe not as much as you would have had in past cruises. Part of the reason for that is because because of the spacing within the theaters, they wanted to give people plenty of opportunities to see like the live stage shows, which Disney Cruise Line is famous for. So they would showcase all these shows on 2 separate nights. Right.
So you could have so they would do a show for the early and the late seating twice. So like you said, 2 separate nights. So, you definitely had an opportunity if you couldn't get to one, or you didn't, if you got there late and you didn't care for the seats as well, that you could get another opportunity. So yeah, it was in great shows.
The stage shows are always
fabulous.
One of my favorite things aboard a Disney cruise. There's nothing like it on any other cruise that we've been on. We've been on several cruise lines. There are no shows as good as the Disney shows. What we had on there was we had Aladdin.
Right.
We had Frozen, which, hashtag real men love Frozen. So that was a big day for me. And we had Believe, which is one of the more Disney shows where they incorporate, nuance from a bunch of different songs and nuance from a bunch of different characters from a bunch of different Disney films in to tell one complete story.
Right.
And it always brings tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
Those I think are my favorite shows.
Yeah, those are awesome. Like you said, they're telling a different story, but using, the traditions of Disney characters and films as well. So yeah, I also enjoyed that. They're continuing their I guess they call it like Broadway series, where they have a performer from who's performed on Broadway also take the time and share some of their journey, which included going to Broadway and and then how they got involved in Disney Cruise Line.
Right, and he is part of the cast and played Jafar, and he played the main character, which his name escapes me right at this moment, in Believe, and very talented performer. He was in Les Mis on Broadway for many, many years, and the touring company as well. And he really did a great talk, and that was a lot of fun. Movies on board as normal, lots of different movies. We saw Encanto on board for the first time, which loved it. Music is fabulous, great story, beautiful movie.
Right.
We saw West Side Story on board, which
just came out.
Right.
Was it the day we boarded or the day before?
Yeah, it was really close to it. It was.
So that was a new showing during our journey.
Yeah. They also had a few other movies, including The Eternals, which we did not get to go see. Unfortunately, we were really bummed because we were really, really hoping, because it just came out, a couple days before we boarded. But Spider-Man No Way Home was not aboard the ship. I think that's due to the fact that it's mostly a Sony. Film. It's, even though Disney has a big hand involved in those films, it is a Sony film. So that was not on board, and we were really disappointed by that. And we still haven't seen it yet.
I know.
But I was not disappointed with the movies that we did see.
Right, and they had other films running throughout it as well. So like if you hadn't had a chance to see, for example, Jungle Cruise in a theater, you could see that. But yeah, there was a great variety. That was very much like any cruise, Disney cruise from the past. You know, they have a lot of great variety of films, and if something is newly released, it will be also played.
What was not like other cruises when we went on board is that the outside of the stage shows and the movie theaters, the entertainment on board was a little less than what you would normally experience. There were only a couple performers on. They did have like a magician and a ventriloquist on board. We did not go to those shows because that's not a thing for us, but they only had 2 musical performers on board. One who's a piano player who we did get to hear play in one of the main dining rooms one night, and he was great. The other one we were really, really excited about. We found out just a couple of days before we left that this was going to happen. You remember, if you've listened to the show for a while, we've made a connection with a couple of Disney Cruise Line performers, Sonia and Paul, aka Soul Duo. Well, we found out a couple days ahead of it that Paul, unfortunately not Sonia, but Paul was going to be making his debut, his return. Thank you. That's a better word. To Disney Cruise the exact same day we were first making our return to a Disney cruise.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And not that Sonia's being excluded in 6 more days. She will be joining him, which is great that Soul Duo will return. But it was just an opportunity that Paul was able to get going first. And they're going to actually be transferring to on the Magic.
Right. So Sonia couldn't be on board because she was having some issues. Her visa expired like the day they got called back that they were going to be able to come back on. Paul was able to come back on first, and he performed out by the Cove pool. So the adult pool out there, and he would perform there regularly nights, usually a couple sets a night. On Christmas Day, he did a few more sets, but we got to catch up with him, and that was really great and just such a treat to have that experience, to be able to, have him there. Like I said, it would have been great if Sonia was there too, but it was good to see Paul back working. He's such a talented person and performer, and it was enjoyable to check him out, doing what he does best.
Right. Yeah. And just, like you said, very talented, just, great personality, and enjoyable to see him. And it was a nice coincidence that we were joining the cruise line back the same time he was. But like what you were saying, the amount of entertainment, like, some of the things that you would normally see on a cruise, say, for example, going to a lounge and, maybe having some cocktails, visit with friends, and listen to music, wasn't afforded because they weren't really trying to promote that in the lounges.
Yeah, they didn't want somebody, and we talked about this with Paul. We sat down, had coffee with him, and had a good conversation with him. They're trying to avoid, people out there just singing out towards, a group of people, with the, in an enclosed space, which could, possibly, affect the spread of COVID or whatever. So he was out on deck, like I said, by the pool, singing away, and not great seating there to watch him, but it was enjoyable, good music, and it was a good time just the same.
Right. And it again, it's almost like Disney is kind of like dipping their toes into bringing some of the talent back.
Right, exactly. So enough about the entertainment. Let's get to what we really, really love aboard a Disney cruise, and that's the food. The food. What did you think about the food? We'll just start with the main dining room food on board the cruise.
I thought it was good. I think we've talked in the past. That's not the highlight of a Disney cruise ship, anyways, in terms of like saying, "Oh, wow, at the this is spectacular," but definitely it was delicious. It was plentiful. The servers were so enthusiastic about having people back on board that they really made you feel welcomed on board, and did everything to make sure your dining experience was enjoyable and fun.
I tell you what, our server Dan and his assistant Mayo, they wanted to be sure that we walked off the cruise about 10 pounds heavier.
I know, crazy.
After the end, because it started off right on the first night. Like, we didn't even order dessert. He just walked out with like the 3 best, or what he felt were the 3 best desserts, and just laid them on the table for us. There was always another plate there that we didn't necessarily order. And even when he brought extra stuff, he was like, so if there's anything else you want, just hit us up.
Right.
It was really, really wonderful.
Yeah, it was great. I was impressed this time with more knowledge of what the dishes involved, and having better recommendations. So I thought that was really nice that they've improved on that, actually. I think where the service really had a comfort level with being able to describe a dish and say, this one might be better than that, especially after they get to know you and what your tastes are like. But yeah, the dessertorama was really impressive.
We had so many desserts. It was so funny. But and also Dan was always treating us to some origami every day. He was taking paper menus and fold them into different little animals every night. And that was always entertaining as well. So we had a great time. Food was a little hit and miss. Some was better than others. Right. But overall, I think the dining room experience, the food was good. The service was wonderful. We had a great time in the main dining room.
Right. Interestingly, along the whole journey, when from time to time we would talk to some of the cast members just to see, some of their experiences, when they've returned, et cetera. And it was surprising. I'm not saying a lot, but considering we didn't talk to a ton of cast members, a lot of them had recently, some others, in addition to Paul, had just boarded with us. So I feel like some of the issues with food may be the fact that they are still getting getting cast members on for the first time that may not be as familiar with, some of the menu, and that might influence how that was, that in the future it may be just continue to get better.
Yeah. So, but we enjoyed it overall, and Disney, is not famous for its food. Its entertainment and its customer service is what makes Disney Cruise Line special. But I think their food has gotten better, and I enjoy eating the dining rooms every night. Plus, the dining rooms are always, since you move from dining room to dining room, they're always interesting to be involved in different on a daily basis.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So we also did go high end one night. We did it again. This is the second time we've ever done this. We did book a night at Remy, which is the really upscale restaurant aboard this ship. Think of it, it's comparable to Victoria and Albert on land, at Disney at the Grand Floridian. It's that level of food, maybe even better. You could argue it might be even better. But Michelle, tell people what you thought of our night at Remy.
Well, that's such a special experience that, we would always highly recommend. We were really treated to the fact that our server's name was also Remy, but with an I instead of a Y. And it was also his first day back. Well, not the day that we went for the meal, but this cruise was his first return. He had worked at it before. He had worked at Disney World, at Epcot, at the French Pavilion. But the food, just really great personality. But the food was spectacular. It's really difficult for me to be able to try to describe why that is, why it's so special. Not just in the taste, but the textures, the experience, it in and of itself is a show. And I'm not saying a show in like, ta-da, here's your dish and we're dancing around. No, it's just the food, the quality of it, the uniqueness of it. I mean, not necessarily just the products. I mean, for example, we had lamb, but it was like the best lamb ever, and how it was prepared was the menu itself was just so unique. And it's great that they have you could do several different ways of how you get your food, but mainly people choose from 2 tracks.
Right.
And, what they suggested, and we've done before, is each of us get a different track, so it's a multi-course menu.
They're designed by 2 different classic Michelin star chefs.
Exactly. Yeah. So one is considered more of an American set of dishes menu, and one is more traditional French kind of concepts. I shouldn't say traditional because it's so unique. But it is wonderful. And what's great is that we get to, it's not huge amount of food. So you're not coming out of there stuffed, but it's enough food that you feel comfortable with what you had. We got to taste each other's dishes. We did it with the alcohol pairing, which was spectacular. How just amazing, that it makes it even that much better to complement the food so perfectly. And so we get to even, enjoy a sip or two as we were trying each other's dishes with the wines that they served as well.
Yeah. We went all out on this thing. We decided that, it's our return to Disney Cruise after a couple years away almost. And, our return to get a chance to get back to Remy. And if we were going to do this thing, we were really going to do it big. So we did both order this different menus. You ordered the French. I ordered the American stylish menu. We did have the wine pairings with each. So we would both get a different glass of wine that paired with the meal. And then, yes, we were sharing both wine and the food. And it is exquisite. There's just the experience, the journey you go on through all these dishes. I said this to Michelle when we were out there. It's like, look, and if you know me, you know that I can cook a little bit, that I have some culinary school experience, that I feel I can make food pretty well. I can make tasty dishes. I cannot make this food because they think of so many interesting and ingenious pairings that I could never put together into a single dish. And yet somehow it all works. It all comes together. It sings. It's just, it's so flavorful. The presentation is amazing. The service is unbelievable. It is just an experience. It really, this costs a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a little less than what you would pay if you were to go full bore at Victoria and Albert's on land. But it's not cheap. But if you can afford it, if you feel you can, it is worth every penny for that experience, for that one indulgent night. Right.
It takes a while. It's not it's beyond an hour. So if you look at it that you're getting food and being entertained, and again, I'm not saying entertained in the sense of there's no one singing or anything, but the experience that you're able to, appreciate during this is definitely one that, you could say you could put a quality dollar amount to it, both tracks are the same price. It's a fixed price for the multi-courses.
I believe it's $125.
Yeah, I believe it's $125 per person. And then, the wine pairing, if you want to do that, some people might not drink or might not be interested in that. Or, I do know that some people may just want one glass of and just use that. They'll allow, obviously they're going to make that experience happen for you the way you want it, but it really does enrich the experience when you do the wine pairing because again, you're not getting a ton of alcohol, that you're just getting several sips, because it's also a small plate with each of these courses that you're not coming out drunk or anything like that, but it does complement the food so perfectly. And like you said, I think the word exquisite is definitely one that can describe this. It's like you said, the ideas of what foods are being paired, but just how they're prepared, the different textures, whether you're talking, gels or foams or, crunch, it's things that you're getting it in a presentation that same food wouldn't normally come that way.
It's
hard to describe.
Right. Until you've experienced it, it's really, and it's a good couple plus hours dinner. It's like a traditional European dinner. They don't do anything quickly. It's all paced, which is good because there is a lot of food there. And there's some other bonus things. Yes, there's the courses they have on the menu, but they come out with various other things that are thrown in too, that there's more food here, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It comes in along with the dinner, and a cocktail at the beginning if you so desire. And also if you are let's just say you have an allergy, a shellfish allergy, or whatever it may be. We are blessed that we're very lucky that we don't have allergies.
Right.
We like most food, so we're willing to put ourselves completely in the chef's hands. But let's just say you don't like fish. It doesn't even need to be an allergy. You can just tell the chef, I'm not a seafood eater.
Right.
They will adjust those menus to that. If you're a vegetarian, a vegan, they can adjust these menus to still serve you a wonderful, wonderful meal.
Right. And if you didn't want to do the multi-course menu, they do have a la carte that you can also order from there.
Exactly. So we've talked a lot about that, but let's get to what this episode is supposed to all be about. And that is waking up on Christmas Day aboard a Disney Cruise Line. So Michelle, walk us through a little bit. What was it like waking up on Christmas Day aboard a Disney cruise ship?
Well, I think it was something that was truly special, and something, I think that added to the specialness of it was just anticipating it, the time of knowing this was going to be coming, and, just the joy to plan it was also part of the great experience. We also had planned to have our matching PJs, and we did see multiple people, not just going to breakfast in their matching holiday pajamas, but going out at the atrium throughout the day, getting pictures. I saw people there all day long in pajamas. Some people I don't think ever got out of their pajamas, and kudos to them. So
some people were wearing it to Christmas Eve dinner the night before in the main dining room. They were wearing their pajamas, which was great. I loved it.
But, and so that and slippers and things like that. So it was special experiencing, knowing that, there's only so many people in the world right now open on Christmas morning waking up on a Disney cruise ship.
Yeah. So we got up, we in our pajamas, we dolled up a little bit from getting up in bed. And then we went to Gavanna's to check out the food a little bit, but we had something else planned. So we didn't really eat breakfast there, but we wanted to sort of take part in the tradition, which is kind of a tradition on board a Disney cruise ship when you wake up on Christmas to be in your holiday PJs. So we did that. Then we went down to the atrium where they were taking pictures, and we got some photos taken. You may have seen them on social media in our PJs in front of the gingerbread house. Right. Real gingerbread, by the way, in that house, just like that you see at the Walt Disney World Resorts and the Grand Californian, for that matter, at Disneyland Resort. Santa was there taking pictures. Yeah. He got done from his long night and was ready to relax on a Disney cruise. He was there, got some pictures. The tree was there. Characters in their holiday garb were out. So a lot of people got taking pictures with the various characters. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
And then we did have a special brunch that we had reserved for Christmas morning, which really made Christmas special by going to Palo's.
Yeah, so we had to change out of our PJs. Yes. They may have let us go in our PJs to Palo, but we weren't going to take that chance. So we changed, went to Palo for brunch. Now, brunch at Palo is one of our favorite things. It's a little different than it used to be. It used to be like, there you could order some entrees, but the biggest thing was this buffet that you would go to, full of meats and cheeses and pastries and all sorts of great stuff. So good. It's changed a little bit right now due to COVID. So they're doing things a little differently. They're coming with baskets of things. You're ordering antipasto. So we were ordered, like one of us ordered the seafood one, other one ordered some of the like the prosciutto, the special, the cured meats and olives and stuff like that.
Right.
Had that. And then you order maybe a soup. You can order a flatbread, an entree. The chicken parm is still the best chicken parm in the world that I've ever experienced, and a dessert and everything. So it's more of like a standard meal ordered by courses now.
Yes.
But it still was wonderful and amazing to experience that on Christmas Day.
Right. And, they really emphasize that if you did get a dish that you really weren't in love with, they would definitely bring something else for you. So you didn't feel like this is it. If you didn't like it, too bad. How sad. It wasn't like that.
Right. And all still for the same flat rate. I mean, the rate's gone up a little bit over the last few years, but $45 per guest, and you get all this great food, and we loved it. And you also get a if you so desire, a glass of champagne or a mimosa or a Bellini, if you want one to go along with your meal included.
Right. So it was lovely.
That was great. They also had a special menu. I mean, there was lots of stuff going on through the day. As Michelle mentioned, they had the Santa Claus playing at the Walt Disney Theater midday.
Right.
You could have went and checked that out. All sorts of different fun stuff. I think they had some crafts and Mrs. Claus telling holiday stories as well at various different times during the day. And then they had a special holiday menu in the dining rooms at night, the same menu for all 3 dining rooms. Didn't matter which one you were, and you were going to get the same menu.
Right.
And it was one of our favorite menus from the entire cruise.
Yeah, you're right. It was the quality of the dishes that was served to us, and the variety being very traditional food items that you would associate with Christmas Day were definitely there, and we loved it.
Yeah, and it didn't really matter what you normally ate on, if you're thinking about your traditional Christmas dishes, do you have, like you had on Thanksgiving, do you have the turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes or whatever?
Right.
Well, that was on the menu. Do you have ham? A lot of people have ham as their traditional Christmas dish. There was ham on the menu. A lot of people like to do a full-on standing rib roast for dinner. Right. That was on the menu, and it was phenomenal, by the way. That's what I ordered. Along with, we were presented many, many dishes that night, but it was I think that was smart, because I don't think there was a miss for anything on that menu that was the perfect night. Every food we had was wonderful. Right.
And we tried, various appetizers. I think we each had several different ones from each other, and the desserts, again, traditional items, one of my favorites, Bûche de Noël was there, served as well. And, so it was lovely.
Yeah, it was great. A great dinner. We had, right before that, we had gone to visit Paul again and saw him perform one more time. He was performing out on deck for most of the night. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it later because we had to pack.
Right.
Because Christmas Day, unfortunately, was also our last day aboard the ship.
Yes.
Our last full day aboard the ship. So we did have to take care of some things. But all in all, Christmas Day was spectacular. Enjoyed every bit of it. And, it depends on what your holiday tradition is. It's not going to be your typical holiday, that maybe you experience at home with family or whatever. But it really is an interesting way and a fun way to do a little bit of a different tradition. And maybe it becomes your new Christmas tradition to wake up aboard a Disney ship.
Sure. And I would think, it's a different experience depending on whether you're with family, or not, if, you have a large family and you're in multiple cabins and things like that, could really be fun as well.
We enjoyed it a lot. I don't know if we will. We were glad we experienced it. Don't know if we'll spend another Christmas aboard a Disney ship. You never know. We'll never say never. We had a great time, so maybe. But either way, it was a wonderful, wonderful time.
Right. I mean, I think for doing a Very Merry Time, I would probably like to do another one, but not necessarily need to be on Christmas Day. Do one kind of like how in the parks you can go during Christmas season, and it really helps, bring you into that mood and mode of Christmas time. I would probably like to do that, but I think depending on what your current family traditions are, I think there were some things I did miss, like we talked about the fact that personally that we didn't set up a Christmas tree at home and stuff. In hindsight, I think we could have done things like that.
Yeah.
But anyways,
it was good. It was still all good. We enjoyed it. What were your overall impressions of the cruise? Is there something you can close with here? What would you tell people that you enjoyed, or maybe they should take note of?
Right. I think it was, like you said, feeling safe with the processes that they have in place, as long as you're following them the way they're meant to be, I think it's great. I felt like the crew was really appreciative to be able to have this again, have cruising industry back again. And, they were all very friendly with everybody. Like I mentioned before, I think I would probably want to do it again, but do it earlier in the season, whether it's just after Thanksgiving or early December, and, have a taste of that and still come home and have regular Christmas morning at home.
I was going to say, I loved it all. Christmas Day was not the same. I would have loved to have been with my family and everything on Christmas Day, but it was wonderful just being with you and having our different Christmas fun this year for one single year, doing it a little differently. Really enjoyed it. I liked the holiday touches. I liked that it was a vacation that I felt very safe on as far as with the pandemic going on. I still got the Disney feel, got emotional getting back on board a Disney cruise for the first time since we left when the pandemic went crazy. It was wonderful. We booked another cruise. As I said, we can't wait to go on the Disney Wish. We're looking forward to booking another cruise after that one. And I highly recommend it. I recommend you doing a Disney cruise, especially right now. It's going to be a little different than what you know as a cruise from the past, but the magic is still there. And there are some things that you can do now because the ship is not as full as it was before that you may have had more struggles doing in the past. So, and if you have any questions about booking a Disney cruise, what cruising is like on Disney right now during the pandemic, we'd be more than thrilled to answer those for you.
Yeah, definitely. Reach out to us.
Yeah. So that is what it was like waking up Christmas Day on a Disney cruise. All right, so obviously we wanted to talk a lot about that. Luckily, we don't have a lot of Disney stories of the week, so we can get through this pretty quickly to not make this episode be ridiculously long. So just this one story, really, I'm going to talk about, and that is a popular Walt Disney World destination reopens today, but another is unfortunately temporarily closing. We'll tell you what those are. We'll go straight to the Disney Parks blog for that. They say surf's up at Disney's Typhoon Lagoon Water Park. Yes, the tropical island-inspired theme park reopens to guests today as we are recording this. This is January 2nd, 2022. I got to already see some people on social media out there enjoying their return to Typhoon Lagoon. And they went on to say at Typhoon Lagoon, if you've never been there, you can do all sorts of fun things like create your own Dole Whip at Snack Shack next to Typhoon Tilly's, where you can mix and match Dole Whip flavors, including mango, pineapple, lime, and raspberry to build your own refreshing treat. Adult guests, which is us, can even choose to complement their Dole Whips by adding, Michelle won't do this, tequila, but she may want to add coconut rum or dark rum.
Yes.
You can also catch a wave at the Typhoon Lagoon surf pools, shoot down the Crush and Gusher water coaster, or something more my speed, head to Castaway Creek for a peaceful drift down the 2,000-foot lazy river, floating past shady grottos, thundering waterfalls, overhead rope bridges, and lush rainforest landscapes. Lots of stuff to do there. It is a separate price from the parks tickets. You do have to pay like a parks ticket to go to the water parks, but they do. We're not really water park people, but they always do seem sort of fun.
Yeah, and I'm happy for people because there are some people who really love that. People from other parts of the country who, they don't have that same kind of experience, and so glad for them. Yeah.
So, unfortunately, the opening of Typhoon Lagoon means, they're going to shut down temporarily the Disney's Blizzard Beach water park. It's going through its refurbishment period right now. So they opened one, closed the other one after they refurbished Typhoon Lagoon. So don't have a date on when that's reopening, but that closed on Saturday. So just know if you're planning to go there and you want to go to a water park, it's Typhoon Lagoon for right now.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's not unusual, though.
No, it's not at all. It's not at all, especially this time of year. They don't usually need, it is relatively cool even for Florida during this time. A lot warmer than most of the country, but relatively cool usually at this time of the year. So the water parks don't get as much business usually at this time of the year anyway. So good time for them to have refurbishment. So that's it. Quick Disney stories of the week. However, we never leave you without giving you some sort of tip that might help you on your next vacation. And when we do this, we always start with Michelle. One, because she has the best lists. She does the best research, but she definitely has the very best tips. So let's get to it. Here's Michelle's tip of the week.
Well, thank you, honey, for that compliment. And I I decided just to stick with Disney Cruise Line for the theme of today's episode. And so my tip has to do with that. One of the things that Disney Cruise Line we talked about is passenger safety is a big deal with them. And part of that includes, managing the amount of kids that are in the youth clubs. And the way they do this is through a reservation system. But what do you do if you have like Apollo or Remy's reservation, but you can't secure a youth club for your child at the same time? Well, don't panic and don't cancel your dining reservation yet. Don't despair. First of all, the best thing that you could do is check with the counselors at the youth club, because they also know that there might be some flexibility. They may be aware of somebody maybe canceling something, or that they have an ability to add on some people at certain times. So just check with them. They're wonderful, and they'll try their best to make sure that could happen with your current reservation. If that isn't available, then chat with guest services, and you can do that either in person or on the Disney app through chat. We did both while we were on the cruise, and just check with them, and they can possibly help adjust your dining reservation to synchronize with what could be available in the youth club. So even though you might want to make sure you're getting your adult time in a fine dining restaurant, but you're having struggles with making sure your childs are being, well cared for and watched, it can happen. Just work with the crew there, and they're going to do their very best to help that for you.
Yeah, that's one thing we've always found with Disney Cruise Line guest services and Disney guest services in general, is that they want to work with you. They want to make the situation the best as possible for you. And
right.
That's a good way to do it.
Thank you. And the one thing that I would emphasize with that, though, is doing that earlier rather than later.
Always.
So, because then they have more flexibility. If they do have to make, for example, the dining reservation change, having more time or more days to make that adjustment will make that an easier transition for you.
For sure. So Michelle's tip, always the best tip.
Thank you.
My tip real quickly, and this is something I learned in the airport, and it's going to be a really quick tip here. Right now security lines are a bit crazy right now because we're traveling through the holidays, but they can be a bit crazy at any time of year. And maybe you're not really comfortable with somebody kind of breathing down your back during these times right now. Well, I discovered something that was genius, or at least I thought it was genius, of how I could keep the people behind me from not breathing down my back at that moment. And when we were in this long 30+ minute security line, and that was, I took my roll-along carry-on bag, and even though I could hold it right next to me and stand it up, I decided to drag it behind me and push the person kind of back from me about 2-3 feet, because they weren't going to get to the line any quicker anyway.
Right.
But this kind of kept them at bay from behind me. So I just wanted to give you that quick tip. Think about doing that if you're not exactly comfortable like me with somebody buttoned up right against you during these times in the airport right now. So
yeah, good tip.
That's it. It's my silly little tip.
I love it.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it for this week. Next week, we still haven't really pinned down what our next topic would be. I'm thinking about doing something along the lines of maybe our 5 favorite things at the parks, resorts, and cruise line that are debuting in the next year or returning in the next year. I haven't nailed that down yet, but I think that's what we might do, something about that this week.
There was something else we had planned, but we couldn't coordinate the timing with people. So
So we'll work on something like that. We'll let you know on the newsletter and whatever comes up on the weeks it comes. So anyway, we appreciate that you joined us today. In the future, you can find us most everywhere you get podcasts. However, the very best place to find us is on our own website, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. And while you're there,
we would love it if you haven't done so already. Sign up for our newsletter.
Yep, just another way to be involved in the Hyperion Adventures podcast world. Another great way is to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. If you are on Facebook, come on over and join us in all the positive Disney energy fun we're having at the Hyperion Adventurers Facebook group. Mm-hmm. If you want to find us on some of these videos we've been doing on YouTube, just go there, do a quick search for Hyperion Adventures Podcast, hit subscribe, and you'll know whenever we have a new video. And if you ever want to contact us for any reason, please hit us up at our Gmail account, HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com.
Right. We also want to really remind you, we love it if you tell a friend or family member about this podcast. because that really helps get the word out.
Yes, and we appreciate anybody who's done that in the past. That's it. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Hyperion Adventures podcast. We look forward to spending some time with you again next week. Until that time, I'm Tom.
I'm Michelle.
And we hope that you have a magical week.
Bye.